What's going on with y'all, man? I hope everybody's doing well and good health and high spirits. I'm just getting back from Medellin for the second time. I spent a little bit more time on this particular trip than I did on my previous one. So I was there I got in the evening of August 1st, and I left Sunday morning, August 6th at 4 a.m. So I went from the party to the plane, you feel me? But so I'm gonna break down this experience, this trip a little bit more detailed since I did stay a little longer. Oh, now this was my first solo trip. Now I will say this: after going to Cartagena, DR, Jamaica, Bahamas, around places with always having a group of people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, this solo traveling might be the move. I think I haven't had this good of a time in so long because one of the main perks is I was just on my own time. Like when I got in that night, I was kind of tired. I literally just put my stuff down, went and grabbed me something to eat, went back to the room and chilled out. It wasn't nobody putting no pressure on me like, man, it's the party going on, man. We on vacation, man. Look, I'm going to Cartagena with the fellas next month. After that, I might be back on the solo trips because, hey, I had a damn good time. All right, so unlike the first time in Medellin, didn't stay in the El Poblado area, which is mostly the tourist area that I talked about last time. I was in an area called Laureles. Now, Laureles is a little bit more, like I didn't really see as many tourists walking around as you would in the El Poblado area. It was more of like the local people. The strip I stayed on Cali 70. Boy, that shit was cracking. I'm talking about, man, I don't think Colombian people sleep. And if they do, they don't sleep long. When I tell you every night these people party till 5 a.m. Now, which brings me to my Airbnb. Now, my Airbnb was cool. It was small, enough for one person, too, if that's what you're trying to do. I paid about $50 a night. Now, the only downside, she wasn't even really tripping, if you want to bring guests or whatever. The downside, though, it was on top of a nightclub. 2 nightclubs, matter of fact. You had a discoteca to the right, and the Airbnb was on top of this club called a Pico de Botella. When I tell you, until 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning, all I heard was music. By the midweek, I just made it a habit to just stay out until I was dog tired, so it didn't even really bother me. Friday night, my bed was vibrating. I was laying down trying to take a nap, but them Colombian people go hard. Outside of the noise, Bray, if you want to stay in the Airbnb, I'll drop the link for you. You just better bring you some bowls, some noise cancellations. If not, you're going to be mad as hell. But outside of that, man, the food in the local area, I'm talking about, I had restaurants, bars within a stone's throw to the Airbnb, and everything I ate was pretty good. All right, so unlike my previous trips, I actually did some excursions. I actually got out, I did some tours, and went and saw a few things. Cause I ain't gonna lie, man, them chicks get played out pretty early, pretty quick. So being that this like my 4th or 5th time over in Colombia, I was just chilling. Now, I did the Communa 13 tour. That's where they take you to Communa 13. I showed up thinking it was like the history of Pablo Escobar and all his tyranny. And the guy, he talked a little bit about it, but Communa 13 was pretty much the last barrio, if you would call it, that was controlled by the gangsters. So the tour is not only do they take you through, show you how they didn't put so much money into the escalators. It's a whole area now that's just pretty much thriving on the theme of hip hop, and it's trying to reset to other Colombians and the world that the place isn't as dangerous as it used to be. Say at one point in time was one of the most dangerous places in the world, let alone Medellin. So if you do go, I booked all of my excursions through Airbnb. since that just made it the easiest, had the best reviews. So they do have guides that speak English. My guide name was Jason, bro, was pretty cool. He was on his shit too. He knew a lot. You can tell when somebody really knowledgeable about something and just not blowing smoke. The funny thing though, it was this German girl. She kept asking about all the cocaine in Medellin. She was like, "Where's the cocaine made? Where's the so do people do cocaine?" And he just was like, "Man, it ain't no coke on this tour. You on the wrong tour, lady." But I highly recommend Communa 13 for a tour. It's going to take you about, it started about 10 that morning. I think I was back at my Airbnb about 2 o'clock. I would say the only bad decision I made on this trip was to go out. I ain't even say I went out drinking. I just stepped out to the club, and that's just ended up what happening. I got drunk with some Australian people. Whew. Glad I made it. Look, Australians go hard. But hanging out with Australian people that night in the club, it made me realize, because I'm with a group of white guys, essentially, that look, they look white. And I'm just looking at all the brothers in there. You can tell they foreigners. I'm talking about they, like I'm Colombian. You can tell we foreigners. And I'm just like, bro, y'all is embarrassing. I start trying to pick up the Australian accent by the end of the night. I'm going to blend in. I'm Aussie. I'm even standing on couches and just, man, drawing attention to themselves. But long story short, man, I spent $200 on drinks. It ain't no telling what the Australian dudes drinks, because they bought me way more drinks than rounds that I paid for. I'm like, bro, they probably spent about 2 bands in there. On drinks, we could have just bought some bottles. That was the dumbest ever. Oh, man. But had a good time, though. Shout out to Black Diamond nightclub in El Poblado. The next excursion I did the following day, after being supremely hungover from drinking Jack and Coke all night, man, I probably had on the short end, I remember 12. But I had eaten good. And I'll get into the restaurant that I went to prior to that. But I decided to take a food tour. Now, I'm a red snapper guy, but I also had to get out of the box of eating stuff that I'm comfortable eating. You know what I mean? So in all my videos, you can't find where I'm just talking about Colombian cuisine. I ain't gonna lie, man. Doing this food tour was probably one of the best things that I could have did on this trip. And here's why. Not only did it show me some places to go, I got some new favorite local dishes. Bocadilla, I think. And it's like this ball of it's like a fried donut kind of, but not glazed. You remember that strawberry shortcake stuff we used to eat as kids, where people in their 40s. Picture somebody fried that and stuffed it with like chocolate or dulce de leche or guava. Man, that thing was bomb. Then I had a few arepas. They were pretty good. I had the kind where you stuff with the carne, with the pollo, just vegetables. They put an avocado or sweet plantain in there. Colombian culture, they like to mix sweet and salty for some reason, which is pretty good. I went to another spot. In this spot right here, they take the tortilla or the arepa thing that they call it. They put a piece of cheese on it that they make over in Colombia, and you can put some condensed milk on it. Now, being somebody that is lactose intolerant and very much respects that, I was a little hesitant, but I went ahead with it because I had eaten. And I'm like, hell, I got toilet paper back at the room. I'll be all right. Didn't even mess me up, because unlike here in the States, they don't put all of that processed stuff in the food like we do. So the food tour is dope, though. The tour guide's name was Brian. If you want to know how to take the tour, man, you just go to Medellin, put in food tours with Brian, or I can send you the link personally, but I don't feel like trying to figure out how to do all that. Now, the last tour I did, Brian also took us to this rooftop over in El Poblado, and before we went in there, he was like, yo, this the best view in the city. And everybody was like, yeah, I hear you, whatever. Hey, man, bro he might have been right. Until I see something else, this is the #1 view.
So, guys, we're going to chill here for a while. gonna be here for like maybe 20 minutes, 30. If you want a recommendation for cocktails, there is two that I love it.
It was at this hostel that doesn't look like no hostel that we, would picture when we think of what it should be, or one that we might have been to ourselves. This place was dope. I'm talking about this where the view was. They had a bar, they had arcade games. Man, it was called, what I did was a tour of a town called Guatape. Now, if you've ever seen people in Medellin that's hiking that big old rock that's surrounded by water, it's a reservoir, pretty much like what Lake Lanier is, minus the dark history. They actually evacuated the town and leveled everything and did the right thing before they poured the water, unlike these angles here in Georgia. It's about an hour and a half ride outside of the city. Also, tour was available in English and Spanish. Somebody that's still learning Spanish, I appreciated it because they did it in Spanish first before they gave it in English. And I was sitting there picking up a lot of it, in Spanish. And I would have been completely lost. I wouldn't have been completely lost, but I'm starting to get a little bit better at it. So the town itself is pretty much like a bunch of shops. You can go in, buy things, eat. You can also climb the rock. I decided I wasn't going to climb that rock because I wanted to go out, and that was my last night in town. And I didn't want to go back to my Airbnb and fall asleep because I was tired. But I highly recommend it, man. They feed you on the way, teach you a little history about Guatape, about the lake. You get to see some dope houses also. I think a few of the national soccer players live on the lake. So yeah, I highly recommend that tour also. It kind of worked out because the meeting spot for the tour was 2 blocks from my Airbnb in Loretta's. I know some of y'all probably gonna watch this video and go, all right, so where's the part about the chicks? Man, they really ain't none. I mean, if you watch any of my other videos, man, I covered all that stuff. It's really nothing to talk about. They was out there, hola popping, trying to get a brother attention. But man, with all this going on now in the news, I was chilling, man. I was, yeah. But overall, I'm gonna give Medellin, man. I'm gonna give it an 8 on the solo trip, man. I'm gonna give it an 8. I love Cartagena. Cartagena's always gonna have a special place in my heart, being that's the first Colombian city I visited. But I think Medellin more of my speed, man. It's not as hot. The climate was dope. Food was good. It's plenty of things to do, And the only reason why we spent that much money drinking that night because we was in El Poblado. If we'd have been in another neighborhood where more of the local people were at, wouldn't have cost nowhere near that. So definitely going back. I'm going back to Cartagena in September for about 17 days, and I think I'm gonna spend about 6 in Cartagena. And I'm gonna go, as soon as the crew leave, I'm going to Medellin for the rest of my trip. Also ready to try a few other places in Colombia. I met a guy in the airport who was on his way to Bogota. So me and bro chopped it up. We exchanged WhatsApp. So I've been hollering at him, and he like, bro, hey, Bogota cracking too. And he don't know Spanish. So I know it'll be decent for me as a beginner mediate. I'm beginner mediate. I ain't beginning and I ain't intermediate. I'm beginner mediate. I was able to get through a few conversations though, without translating. My Uber driver one night, bro was funny as hell, bro. He was telling me to watch out for the chicas. He was like, ah, man, he was so funny. But that's the longest conversation I've had with anybody in Spanish. And at first I was like, I don't know what he talking about. But then he kind of peeped that I knew how to say certain things. So he started talking a little slower and like making hand gestures so I could see what he meant. And we was able to get through it, man, which was really inspiring for me to just come back and learn. Stay on it. You got to keep at it. You know what I mean? But overall, man, if y'all got any questions, comments, anything, man, drop them below. Like I say, if you want to know where the Airbnb is, I will let you know. Just take some headphones. But other than that, man, until the next time, I'll be in Cartagena next month. So I'm gonna take some tours this time. I'm gonna get out. I ain't gonna be on demon time. I'm gonna get out, do some tours, and see what Cartagena really has to offer besides what we all know it has to offer.